Joining us now live, Kentucky Senator, the Republican Rand Paul. Dr. Paul, great to have you, sir.
Glad to be with you, John. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Senator, I want to start with the crisis we've got right now in the ISIS situation. We've had some analysts on today telling us 7 to 10 days, Baghdad could fall. It could be a Saigon evacuation type situation. Joint Chiefs of Staff Robert Dempsey perhaps going to ask the president for troops. Senator, where are we in this situation?
I think it's a muddle. I think it's a disaster. I think a good way to contrast this with the leadership of the first George Bush in the first Gulf War, where we had, 30 countries actively involved, including troops. There do need to be boots on the ground, but I still think the boots on the ground ought to be Iraqi, Kurdish, Turkish, Jordanian, Saudi, Qatari. Every surrounding country there has really aided and abetted the rise of ISIS instead of combating it. Turkey's got a 650,000-person army, and they're not doing anything to combat ISIS. In fact, it appears as if they have a deal not to attack ISIS. ISIS is right on their border towns, and they do nothing. So ultimately, we do need to support this effort, but I think the support should not include American GIs. If the Iraqis are unwilling to fight for their country, I'm not about to send American GIs in to do it for them.
So then, Senator, assuming that we cannot get coalition troops in there, would you be in favor of just getting out?
Well, the question has to be, as long as we have a consulate and an embassy there, we have to defend our consulate and our embassy.
Right.
One of the things that this administration has done has been reckless with regard to war, both in Libya, where we ended up losing the ambassador and the embassy because we got ourselves involved in a war which we didn't understand and which actually made the world more dangerous and allowed the rise of radical Islamists. Same thing has happened in Syria. For the past 2 years, we have been heavily involved in that Syrian civil war. Us and our allies have provided 600 tons of weapons to the Syrian rebels, but as a consequence, ISIS is now stronger. ISIS had a safe haven to proliferate over the last 2 years. Think also to the people in both parties who wanted to bomb Assad last year. Some of them still want to bomb him this year.
Right.
If we had bombed Assad last year, ISIS would now be in Damascus and ruling all of Syria. So I think much of our intervention in the past has created ISIS. ISIS is a menace. We need to do something about ISIS now, but it's largely as a consequence of doing the wrong thing in the past.
Senator, do you believe that even if President Obama wants to commit troops to defend the embassy, that he needs to come to Congress for authorization?
What he's been doing now, absolutely. All of the bombing in both countries is war, and war is something that is only initiated by Congress. That's the way the Constitution intended it. Our founding fathers wrote extensively about this, spoke about this in the Federalist Papers. They said that the executive was the branch most prone to go to war. Therefore, they gave that power specifically to the legislature. And so I think this president's in violation of the law. I think he's acting illegally and unconstitutionally. And when you do that, you don't end up galvanizing the public. So there's also a practical reason why you come to Congress, and that's that both parties then become united, and it becomes a war not of an individual president. It becomes a war of both parties, all people, and the entire country united. And I don't believe we're there at this point, and there'll continue to be criticism of the president for many reasons, but one main reason is he didn't come to Congress and do it the right way.
Senator, very quickly, the president has decided not to suspend visas to allow people to come in from the Ebola-infected countries in Africa. Do you think that's a mistake? Should we just shut it down?
From the very beginning, I think the government has underplayed this and not done a very good job with this. And I think they've underplayed the transmissibility of the disease. It's very transmissible. Even wearing the proper gowns, it apparently can be caught. And so I think it's been a mistake for the government to underplay this. They've been saying for a long time that it takes direct contact. But then if you listen to them closely, they say direct contact is getting within 3 feet of someone. Well, that's not the way most Americans understand the plain language of direct contact. They've been making it sound like, oh, it's exchange of fluids like catching AIDS, which is difficult to catch and you don't catch at a cocktail party. If someone has Ebola at a cocktail party and they are coughing, they are in danger of people in the room catching this. And so it's, I think, disingenuous at the very least for the government to be downplaying the risk of Ebola.
Okay, we've only got a couple more minutes, Senator. We want to welcome you to Virginia. You'll be at a rally today for Republican Senate candidate Ed Gillespie and congressional candidate Dave Bratt. This is going to be at the Hanover Arts and Activity Center, 500 South Center Street in Ashland, Virginia. Senator Paul, can you share with our audience why you're enthusiastic about the Ed Gillespie campaign for Senate and the Dave Bratt for Congress campaign?
I'm excited to be in Virginia today to endorse both Ed Gillespie and Dave Bratt. And the reason is that I think the country's suffering under the leadership of the Democrats. President Obama and his economy have really, if you're poor and out of work, you need to look for different representatives because the Democrats in the Senate and the head Democrat in the White House really have not been doing much for those who are searching for work, those who are underemployed. There's 2 million people who are underemployed just simply because of Obamacare. And so I think really that people need to look for more leadership. I think Ed Gillespie in the Senate would be great. If Republicans take over the Senate, we'll start to do something to help the people who are out of work in this country.
Now, looking at taking over the Senate per se, if the Republicans were in control of the Senate, is there a top agenda item, Senator, that you have that you want to be absolutely certain is done?
Yeah, I think the thing that we have to do is we have to dismantle the worst parts and hopefully dismantle all of Obamacare, but at the very least dismantle the worst parts of it. We have to give people back their freedom of choice. We have to look at the deficit. We now have added more to the debt than all 43 previous presidents combined. President Obama will have added more than all previous presidents combined. This threatens our country. It threatens our national security. And we have to get a reasonable approach to governing, and that means we shouldn't spend money we don't have. We should only spend what comes in.
Okay, Senator, I've got 1 minute. Final question. Do you have confidence in CDC Director Frieden?
I think they've made a mistake all along in underplaying the risk of this. I think from the very beginning we should have considered suspending commercial flights. I'm not talking about suspending humanitarian aid. I'm talking about suspending, hey, I want to come visit my grandmother. I want to come visit my son from Liberia. There's no reason in the world why we couldn't suspend those commercial flights for a few months until the disease dies down. I am hopeful that this contagion will not spread throughout the United States, but I am concerned that it looks like so far that even with the precautions that the CDC was so enamored of, that said, oh, there won't be any risk with this, that we now have 2 healthcare workers. I hope there will not be more, but we already have 2 healthcare workers because I think people have downplayed the transmissibility of this disease. So, no, I think they could have done a much better job, and I think for many different reasons they are not addressing all of the possible ways that we could isolate this disease and keep it from entering the country.
All right, we want to thank Senator Rand Paul, Republican from Kentucky, for being with us. Senator, we look forward to seeing you this afternoon, 1 to 2 p.m. in Virginia and Ashland. And Senator, finally, got to give a great shout-out to your communications director and my good friend Sergio. He's doing a great job there. Thanks so much.
All right. You're exactly right, John. Thanks a lot.